You know, it was just a couple of days ago that I posted a video featuring a $1 million system. Yeah, $1 million all analog system. And I did it at Innovative Audio here in New York City, and I had a blast. And if you haven't seen that one, definitely go back to see the last episode. I had so much fun. Anyway, today I had almost as much fun, to be honest. I had almost as much fun reviewing this new Schiit. It's called the Cara. It is a fully balanced preamplifier, solid-state preamplifier. It replaces the Schiit Freya S. Now, the tube version of the Freya, not to mix it up too much, the tube version of the Freya Plus, remains in production, and it's not going anywhere. But anyway, this one, the Cara, has significant upgrades over the Freya S. First is, it has a headphone jack. It has a fully discrete headphone amplifier built in. It's not an op-amp headphone amplifier. No, it is a full-fledged headphone amp. I mean, Schiit knows a lot about headphone amplifiers. Their very first product was a headphone amplifier. Anyway, and it sounds really good. But the other really important upgrades over the Freya S are the power transformer. The power transformer is twice the size in its capacity. It went from 24 VA to 48 VA. That's impressive. The voltage rails went for the Freya S, they were 17 volts plus and minus to 32 volts plus and minus. So it's a significantly more powerful design in terms of its power supply. And power supply, as my friend Herb likes to point out, it's like everything when it comes to electronics, according to Herb. And I would absolutely agree. And speaking of power, you can order a Schiit either with the standard US voltage, 115 volts, or 230 volts, so you can use it in many other countries, not just the US. Now, as I said, this is a fully balanced design, meaning from input to output, it remains a balanced signal. And that's a plus. And you don't see that too often in $699 components, but this one absolutely is. Now, most of the Schiit products I've reviewed over the years, and I've reviewed a lot, were finished in silver, the natural aluminum finish. And this one is painted black, and it's a textured paint. And I usually go for the silver look, but in this case, I think Schiit electronics look better in this textured black finish. The overall build quality feels really good, really well put together, and knob feel, yeah, for a $699 preamplifier, knob feel is way up there. Doesn't feel like a $10,000 preamplifier or even a $2,000 preamplifier, but for $699, it's pretty darn good. And it's not an average volume pot. No, it's a 128-step attenuator. So you go between each of these steps, and you hear the preamp making these little tiny clicking sounds as you go between the steps. And one of the great things about stepped attenuators is that they are more precise than a typical volume pot in terms of their left-right balance, maintaining exactly the same level for left and right channels as you go up and down. And that's nice. And again, not a feature you see in too many $699 preamplifiers. And like all Schiits, it is made in the USA, and not only is it assembled in the USA, but most of the parts are also sourced from US vendors. Warranty runs to 5 years, and Schiit products are sold, in the US at least, with a 15-day return policy. So one of the things I've always liked about some Schiit preamps and some Schiit integrated amplifiers is you have the option of using them as with a passive preamp section. In other words, no active gain whatsoever. And in the Cara, you can also, option number 2 is to use it with a push of a button, that is, in low gain with a low gain setting, or push the button again and you're in high gain. So depending on the rest of your system and your personal taste, you may prefer the sound of the passive or the low gain or the high gain settings. And I will talk more about that later in this review. In case you missed it, the Cara price is $699. the first piece of, the rest of the review system. Yes, I almost forgot. The rest of the review system was a Schiit Vidar 2 power amplifier, 100 watts channel into 8 ohms, 200 watts channel into 4. The DAC was not a Schiit. It was actually Emotiva XDA3, which is a balanced DAC, which is why I'm using it, because the Schiit DACs I have on hand are not balanced. And I also use, the speakers were these ELACs over here. These are Unify Reference, the last ones designed when Andrew Jones was still with the company. And I don't talk about them enough, but they are really excellent speakers. Oh, where to begin? Well, the first piece of music I played was this one. This is Warren Zevon's first album. And I gotta say, man, that track, Desperados Under the Eve, that's always been my favorite. And that line, listening to the air conditioner hum, and then he does the humming thing. I don't know, it just knocks me out. Maybe because I have a thing about listening to air conditioners and their noises and hums and fan noises and all that stuff. I'm just obsessed with sound and air conditioner sound. Yeah, so anyway, maybe that's why I was so taken with this song and the way he sings about air conditioners. But in any case, it's a really good recording. And there's 2 versions on this deluxe set. There's the regular one that we all know and love with strings. It's a big production, but also an outtake, which is just the band. And in the middle of the song, Warren goes into this kind of like Bob Dylan voice for a little bit, which is nice. It doesn't get old, actually. I keep loving that little bit. But anyway, it's a good recording. It was a good get acquainted album. And I felt that the system, as I just described what it was really, coming together. This was a really nice, well-balanced system. I know that some people have a thing about passive preamps, that the sound is purer or cleaner because there's no active circuitry whatsoever. That's the theory, at least. And I don't know, when I hear most passive preamps, they don't do a lot for me because I find them kind of boring and bland. But in this case, listening to the Cara passive, it sounded really nice, but switching into the low gain position, it just had more spring in its step. It just had a livelier, more exciting sound, and passive, by comparison, is more laid back. And that's where you get into taste. It's like, what are you looking for? And when I switched over to the high gain position, that I didn't like that much. That was a bit too incisive, too in your face, a little more edge to that sound. And when I go back to the low gain, it was more like, so it's kind of like the Goldilocks and the Three Bears, it's like not too hot, not too cold, just right, just in the middle. And that's the one that I did pretty much all of my listening tests were with the low gain position. I wanted to check out Cara's abilities with headphones, and I used 2 different headphones, the Audeze LCD3 and also the Sennheiser Massdrop HD58X. 2 very different headphones, but one is really expensive and one is not at all expensive. And anyway, I was very impressed with the sound, and I was listening to Neil Young's Tonight's the Night. What a great recording. I love this record. I love this period of Neil Young. He can do no wrong in the 1970s. He's just, everyone is a winner. Anyway, I'm listening to this one, starting with the LCD3, and it is just so right. The vocals sounded right. Drums had enough presence and power to them. Soundstage was big and open and spacious. And I'm listening over headphones and thinking, this is really good. This is way better than most speakers, certainly at this price. And these are $3,000 headphones, by the way. And they're, in terms of detail, retrieval, and hearing into the recording, this was really good. Now, at this point, I did switch over, just for comparison purposes, to this Past Labs HPA-1 headphone amplifier, which is also a preamplifier. And I did these same listening tests with Neil Young, etc., etc. And this is with the Emotiva DAC. And the Past Labs is the better sounding preamplifier and also the better sounding headphone amplifier. But it is, brace yourself, a $3,675 preamp / headphone amplifier. So it is steps up in terms of tonality, soundstage, dynamics, pretty much in every way. It is a better sounding device, the Past Labs is. But going back and listening again and just settling in and listening to Kara over headphones, the Odyssey headphone and also the Sennheiser Mass Drop, I was thinking this is really, really nice. And if you're one of these audiophiles that have neglected headphones and you're really into speakers, I don't know. There's things that you get out of listening over headphones in terms of hearing into the recording and not having your room affecting the sound of the recording and messing with the sound of your recording. When you just hear headphones, good headphones with a good recording, it just sounds more like you're hearing a direct feed back to the session. Your room is taken out of the equation. You're just hearing the recording. So if that kind of whets your appetite to give headphones a try, if you dismissed them in the past, I would urge you to do so. Whether you're interested in the Kara or not, if you have a way of plugging headphones into something that's decent, you will be very much surprised. Oh, so next on my agenda was comparing the balanced versus single-ended sound from the Kara. Balanced is the XLR connections, and single-ended are the RCA connections. Now, some people would tell you or try to convince you that balanced always sounds way better. It's way this, it's way that. No, I'm not going to tell you that at all. Not at all, no. Yes, I will say that the balanced sound is a smidge clearer sounding, and the RCA input, the single-ended sound, is a bit less so, but just a bit. And I don't know, I lean actually towards the single-ended sound, the RCA input and output sound. It's more Steve. Again, this is a personal taste thing. But anyway, I wouldn't be chasing Nirvana with balanced sources to think that that's going to get you to the ultimate truth of the sound of your music. I do not believe that, not at all. Go for that. Whatever makes you happy. I'm not here to convince anybody of anything, really. But if you're asking my opinion, yes, I would go with RCA connections and just use the better cable. Using a better quality interconnect cable might make a bigger difference than whether it's balanced or single-ended. I would go that far. Hey, I just want to take a little detour off this review of the Kara for just a second to talk about one of my favorite guitarists of the 1960s and 70s, Michael Bloomfield. Now, he's not, to me, he's at another level over Eric Clapton. For me, yeah, absolutely. Or Jeff Beck. Yeah, I mean, a lot of the hot shots of the 60s, there's something about his sound. Michael Bloomfield's tone, it had more body to it. He was a very soulful player. And I just dig it. Now, he played on a lot of really important sessions of this period. He played on Dylan's Highway 61 Revisited, Al Cooper's the Super Session dates. He was in the Electric Flag. He was in the Paul Butterfield Blues Band, because Michael Bloomfield was primarily a blues musician. And this box set that I'm showing you a picture of, if you want to get into it, this is where you start, because it's a nice sampling of his best stuff. But anyway, there's just something about his way with playing guitar. He's not flashy like some of the other people. He's not trying to dazzle you with a lot of notes. He does play fast sometimes, but it's more about his technique and the feel of his sound that really gets to me. And yeah, anyway, that's enough of a commercial for Michael Bloomfield. But if you never heard his name before and you overlooked it, check out some of this music. And probably the best place to start, if you're into the Chicago blues thing, is with the Paul Butterfield Blues Band. Yeah, that's where you should start. But wherever, Highway 61, he's all over Highway 61 Revisited. And there was this great outtake in one of the Bob Dylan box sets where he's hearing Michael do all this crazy stuff, and Dylan starts laughing and says, build a wall around that guy, meaning the gobos, the sound partitions. He says, like he's kind of taken over the studio here, and even Dylan was like overwhelmed by what Michael Bloomfield was bringing to that session. Anyway, I think I've given you enough to ponder about Michael Bloomfield. The last bit of music I'm going to talk about today is this one. This is Duke Ellington's Jazz Party. Now, this was recorded in 1959. It's 64 years ago. And it is a phenomenal sounding recording. Well, except for the applause that goes in between the tracks. I don't know why it's there. It's stupid. It shouldn't be there. But anyway, other than that silly stuff, it's an amazing recording. It was done at the Columbia Records studio called Columbia 30th Street, which was, before it was a studio, it was just a regular church. So it's a really big room. It's like 100 feet long, and with a peak in its roof is at 60 feet. It's a huge space, and it's a great sounding room. And when you play this recording and other Columbia records of this time period, like one of my all-time favorites, West Side Story, was recorded there. It's just, it's a shame that they stopped using it in the early 80s. But anyway, this recording sounded great, and it's a brass band and lots of really interesting percussion bits. And this system that I described earlier was really hitting it, man. I was digging the sound big time. So yeah, so Steve, what do you really think? What do you really think of the Schiit Cara? I think for $699, it's really nice. Now, for the flexibility that it offers in terms of that passive low gain, high gain setting that you can't really get anywhere else for this kind of money, that might be enough. Oh, by the way, it does have remote control. I didn't mention that earlier. Yes, there's a very nice, smallish metal remote, and even if you drop it on your foot, it won't hurt you. It says volume up, volume down, mute, and input selection. But it's a fine little remote. Now, I do have one quibble that happened actually twice during my listening sessions, is that as I was doing something, and I remember what it was, the Cara just freaked out and it went into some sort of protection mode and muted the sound, so nothing bad happened. But I couldn't get it out of that state except by turning it off and then turning it back on. So why that happened, I don't know. But I remember it happened when I was adjusting the volume, when I was turning it down really fast with the volume control. And I was turning it down really fast, and it went into this thing, and all the lights, all the LEDs on the front panel just started blinking back and forth. And they just stayed that way for like a minute. So I thought, hey, it's not resolving itself. So at that point, I turned it off, left it off for a minute or so, turned it back on, and everything was fine. But anyway, just feel like I had to mention that little snafu. And now we're going to do it. The Audiophiliac Viewer System of the Day. This is Dan's system. He actually has two systems. He sent this email 2 years ago, and I'm just now getting to it. Anyway, this is his basement system, and he has Tecton double impact speakers, but they're customized with ribbon tweeters in place of the usual tweeter array. There's also a Parasound P5 preamp, Parasound Halo A21 Plus power amplifier, MyTech Brooklyn DAC, Pioneer PLX 1000 turntable with an Ortophon Quintet bronze cartridge, and also an Ortophon ST7 SUT. And there's also another turntable, a Microsecchi MB14 ST with a Goldring E3 cartridge. Then there's a Marantz cassette deck, NAD CD player, and a Pioneer RT707 reel-to-reel machine. Then, for system number 2, it's a very simple office system with Harbeth P3 ESR speakers, PS Audio Sprout 100, Lenovo computer serving Roon as an endpoint with Tidal and Qobuz. Barely visible in the bottom of the picture is a Martin Logan Dynamo 700-watt subwoofer. Thank you, Dan. All right, we are back. My name is Steve Guttenberg, and I am the Audiophiliac. If you like the channel, if you like that one day I'm talking about $1 million system, and the next show I'm talking about a 699 preamp, that I have this wide dynamic range of things that I talk about on this show, not to mention, but I will, the interviews that I'm doing, the shows with Herb, Audiophiliac Viewer Systems of the Day. There's a lot going on here. It's not just one review after another after another. I want to surprise you. That is, if someone said to me, Steve, what do you want to do? What do you want to communicate to the viewers of your channel? I want you to be on your toes. I want you to say, what is Steve up to next? That's it. That's what I want to do more than anything else. And you know what? I think I'm patting myself on the back. Yeah, I think I can do that. I think I've been doing that for 6 years. So yeah, if you like all that, please consider joining the Patreon. To do so is super easy. The address has been on the screen for a while now. You can join for a couple of bucks a month, up to 50 or 100. If you join at that level, you and I will have a private one-on-one conversation at the beginning of the month. And that's a lot of fun. A lot of fun for me, and apparently a lot of fun for a lot of people because they keep coming back for more and more conversations with Steve. Yeah, and with that I could say my work here is at last complete. Thank you again for watching, and I truly do hope to see you back here again very, very soon. Bye-bye.